What would you do if you had just $900 to your name, your last safety net in a world that's already taken almost everything from you? Would you spend it all on an abandoned house that nobody wanted? That's exactly what one desperate mother did. But what she discovered inside those crumbling walls wasn't just dust and decay. It was a secret worth billions of dollars, and dangerous enough to get someone killed. Before we dive into the story, let us know where you're watching from. Maya Coleman was 34 years old, a former nurse whose life had been spiraling downward for 6 months. The rural hospital where she'd worked for 8 years had suddenly closed, leaving her without the steady income she relied on to support herself and her 12-year-old son, Ethan. Ethan wasn't just any child. He suffered from severe asthma that required expensive medications and careful environmental control, something Maya could barely afford even when she had her nursing job. Now she was working 2 minimum wage positions, morning shifts at a local coffee shop and evening work at a convenience store. She was barely seeing her son, barely sleeping, and barely keeping their heads above water. Then came the final blow. Their landlord had decided to sell the building, giving Maya just 30 days to find a new place to live. In a rental market with soaring prices, there was nothing even remotely in her budget. Nothing. All she had left was $900 saved in an emergency fund, money she'd been putting aside dollar by dollar for almost a year. It was their last financial safety net, and she knew that once it was gone, there would be nothing between them and complete disaster. That's when Maya remembered something her grandmother used to say. Sometimes you have to risk everything to save everything. And that's exactly what she was about to do. One sleepless night, as Maya scrolled through unaffordable rental listings on her phone, an ad caught her attention. The county was holding an auction for tax-delinquent properties. She'd never considered buying a house, not with her credit score and financial situation. But curiosity made her tap the link. Most properties started at tens of thousands of dollars, way beyond her reach. But then she saw it, an old farmhouse on 3 acres of land, with a starting bid of just $750. The listing was brief. Abandoned farmhouse, approximately 1,800 square feet, significant structural issues, sold as is, no utilities connected, property vacant for 15+ years. The photograph showed a 2-story white farmhouse with peeling paint, broken windows, and an overgrown yard. It looked like something from a horror movie, but it was a house with land, and the starting bid was less than her month's rent. Maya's best friend Tasha thought she'd lost her mind. "Maya, honey, there's a reason it's so cheap," Tasha said over coffee the next morning. "That place probably has a collapsing foundation or black mold or both. What about Ethan's asthma? And where would you even get the money to fix it up?" "I don't know," Maya admitted. "But I do know that in 29 days we'll have nowhere to live. No one will rent to me with my credit score. And this could be something that's actually ours, something no one can take away." On the morning of the auction, Maya called in sick to her coffee shop job. She put on her nicest outfit, a blue coat she'd bought years ago for job interviews, and tucked the envelope with $900 in cash inside her purse. Her hands trembled as she dropped Ethan off at school. "Wish me luck, baby," she said, kissing the top of his head. "For what?" he asked, confused. "I'll tell you later," she promised. "Maybe I'll have good news." The county courthouse was intimidating, its marble halls filled with people who looked like they belonged there, professional property developers and house flippers with tailored suits and confident expressions. Maya clutched her purse tighter, feeling completely out of place in her second-hand clothes. The auction room was set up with rows of chairs facing a podium. Maya took a seat in the back, trying to be invisible. She watched carefully as the first properties were auctioned, learning the process. The auctioneer would announce the property, bidding would start, and within minutes it would be sold to the highest bidder. Most properties went for much higher than their starting bids. Maya's hope began to fade. Even if the farmhouse started at $750, it would probably end up selling for thousands more. Finally, the auctioneer announced, "Next up, property ID number 45,872. Abandoned farmhouse on 3.2 acres at 1,428 Old Mill Road. Property has been vacant approximately 15 years, has significant structural issues, no utilities currently connected, and is sold as is. Starting bid $750. Maya held her breath. There was a long pause. The room seemed uninterested. "Do I have $750? The auctioneer asked again. Maya's hand shook as she raised it slightly. $750 from the lady in the back. "Do I have $800? A man in the corner, barely paying attention while looking at his phone, raised his hand. $800 from Mr. Reynolds. "Do I have $850? Maya raised her hand again. $850 from the lady in blue. "Do I have $900? The man in the corner glanced up from his phone and casually raised his finger. $900 from Mr. Reynolds. Do I have $950? This was it. Maya had only $900. She couldn't go higher. She had to make a choice. Use every penny she had, or walk away. Maya raised her hand. $900, she said. The auctioneer looked confused. The current bid is $900, ma'am. Are you offering $950? No, she said, louder this time. I'm offering $900, the same as him. She pointed to the man in the corner. The auctioneer looked between them. I'm afraid that's not how it works. The bid is already at $900. I need $950 or higher. The man in the corner had gone back to his phone, clearly uninterested. Please, Maya said, her voice catching. I only have $900. An awkward silence fell over the room. The auctioneer cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. He glanced at the man with the current bid, who wasn't even paying attention anymore. Mr. Reynolds, do you wish to maintain your bid of $900 for the property? The man looked up, assessed Maya for a moment, then shrugged. Nah, I'm out. Too much work for that old place. She can have it. Relief flooded through Maya. Was this really happening? Going once at $900 to the lady in blue. Going twice at $900. Sold. Property ID 45,872 for $900. Maya sat in shock as the room moved on to the next property. She had just bought a house for $900, every penny she had in the world. At the clerk's office, she handed over her cash with trembling fingers and received a folder of paperwork and a single key in return. That's the Mercer place, isn't it? The clerk asked, an older woman with kind eyes. I don't know, Maya admitted. The address is 1428 Old Mill Road. Yep, that's the Mercer house, the clerk confirmed, giving Maya an odd look. Not many people around here would touch that place. It's got quite a history. What kind of history? Maya asked, suddenly concerned. The clerk seemed to catch herself. Oh, just old stories. Nothing to worry about. It's been empty a long time, that's all. As Maya left the courthouse, key in hand, she felt a strange mixture of elation and terror. She had just spent every penny she had on a house she had never even seen up close. A house with quite a history, whatever that meant. She sat in her old car for a long moment, then pulled out her phone and called Ethan's school. This is Maya Coleman. I need to pick up my son early today. A pause. Yes, it's a family emergency. A good one, actually. 20 minutes later, Ethan climbed into the passenger seat, his face worried. Mom, what's going on? Are you okay? Maya turned to him, hardly believing what she was about to say. Ethan, we have a home. A real home that belongs to us. No one can ever make us leave again. His eyes widened. You bought a house? How? With what money? With all our money, she admitted. I took a huge chance. Do you want to see it? Ethan nodded, excitement building on his face. Maya hadn't seen him look this happy in months. As they drove through the countryside, Maya tried to prepare him. It needs a lot of work, honey. It's been empty for years, but it's on 3 acres of land, and it's all ours. Does it have a yard? Can we get a dog now? Ethan asked, his mind racing with possibilities. It has more than a yard. It has land. And maybe someday we can get a dog. But first, we need to make it livable. The GPS directed them down increasingly rural roads until they turned onto a long, overgrown driveway nearly hidden from the main road. As they rounded a bend, the house came into view. Maya's heart sank. It looked even worse than in the photos. The white paint had peeled away to reveal graying wood underneath. Several windows were broken or boarded up. The front porch sagged dangerously on one side. The yard was completely overgrown with weeds and brush that reached nearly to the first-floor windows in some places. She glanced at Ethan, whose excited expression had morphed into shock. Mom, we're going to live here? His voice was small. Maya forced a smile. It needs work, but it's ours. No rent, no landlord, just us. They sat in the car for a long moment, staring at their new home. Finally, Maya took a deep breath. Let's check out the inside. The front door creaked ominously as Maya turned the key. It stuck at first, then suddenly gave way. The musty smell of abandonment hit them immediately. Dust, mold, and the faint odor of animals that had made the house their home over the years. They stepped cautiously into a large front room. Without electricity, the only light came from the dirty windows and the open door behind them. Maya used the flashlight on her phone to look around. The interior was a mess of fallen plaster, animal droppings and debris. Water stains marked the ceiling where the roof had leaked. Old furniture covered in dust remained in some rooms. A sagging couch, a wooden rocking chair, bookshelves with a few moldy books still in place. They moved carefully from room to room on the first floor. A large living room, a dining room, a kitchen with ancient appliances, and a small bathroom with a clawfoot tub. Despite the mess, Maya could see that the house had once been beautiful, with hardware underneath the grime and detailed woodwork around the doorways. "Can we go upstairs?" Ethan asked, his voice echoing in the empty house. "Let me check if it's safe first," Maya said, placing her foot tentatively on the first step. The stairs creaked but felt solid enough. Upstairs, they found 4 bedrooms and another bathroom. In one room, faded flower wallpaper peeled from the walls. In another, what looked like a child's drawings could still be seen on one wall. Ethan had been quiet throughout their exploration, but suddenly he began to cough. Deep, wheezing coughs that Maya recognized immediately as an asthma attack triggered by the dust and mold. "Let's get out of here," she said urgently, guiding him back toward the stairs. "We need to get you to fresh air." Outside, she retrieved his inhaler from the car, and gradually his breathing returned to normal. Maya surveyed the property with a sinking feeling. What had she done? How could they possibly live here, especially with Ethan's asthma? As the sun began to set, reality set in. They couldn't stay in the house tonight. It wasn't safe or healthy. But they had nowhere else to go, and no money for a hotel. "We'll sleep in the car tonight," Maya decided. "Tomorrow we'll figure things out." They reclined the seats as far as they would go, and used the emergency blanket Maya kept in the trunk. As Ethan drifted off to sleep, Maya stared out the window at the dark silhouette of their house. Tears slid silently down her cheeks. Had she made a terrible mistake? Had she risked everything, only to end up homeless anyway? In the morning, they were awakened by the sound of a vehicle coming up the driveway. An old pickup truck parked beside them, and an elderly woman with silver hair emerged, carrying a basket. Maya got out of the car cautiously. "Good morning," the woman called. "I thought I saw lights up here last night. I'm Iris Barnes. I live down the road." She held out the basket. "Brought you some breakfast. Figured you might need it." Maya accepted the basket, which contained still warm muffins, a thermos of coffee, and a bottle of orange juice. "Thank you. I'm Maya Coleman, and this is my son Ethan. We just bought this place." Iris raised her eyebrows. "Did you now? Well, you're the first person brave enough to step foot in there since Josephine Mercer disappeared." "Disappeared?" Maya repeated. Iris nodded. "Back in '89, Josephine just vanished one day. Some say she just up and left, but she wasn't the type. Left everything behind. Clothes, car, personal items. Police investigated but never found a trace." She lowered her voice. "That's why folks around here say the place is cursed. Been sitting empty ever since." Ethan, now standing beside Maya, asked, "Do you think it's really cursed?" Iris smiled at him. "I don't believe in curses, young man, but I do believe some houses hold on to memories. Josephine was a good woman. Helped a lot of people around here with her remedies when they couldn't afford doctors." "Remedies?" Maya asked. She was an herbalist. Grew all sorts of medicinal plants on this property. People came from miles around when they needed healing. Iris looked at the overgrown yard thoughtfully. Somewhere under all that wild growth, her gardens are probably still there. As they spoke, another vehicle approached. A different pickup truck, this one newer. A middle-aged man with graying hair and a teenage girl who looked about Ethan's age stepped out. "Morning, Iris," the man called. "Thought you might be up here." He turned to Maya. "Sam Reynolds. This is my daughter Lily." Maya recognized the name. "Reynolds, were you at the auction yesterday?" Sam nodded. "That was me. I flip houses sometimes, but when I saw you were so determined to get this one," he shrugged. "Seemed like you needed it more than I did." Maya felt a rush of gratitude. "Thank you. I don't know what to say." "Don't thank me yet," Sam replied with a wry smile. "This place is a monster. Brought some tools to help you assess what you're dealing with." Maya hesitated. "I can't pay anyone to help. I spent every had on buying the house." "Did I ask to be paid?" Sam said gruffly. "It's just being neighborly. Besides, no one should have to tackle the Mercer place alone." For the first time since the auction, Maya felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe they weren't completely alone in this after all. Over the next few days, Maya discovered just how enormous the task of making the house livable would be. Sam, a contractor by trade, gave her the unvarnished truth after inspecting the property. The good news is the foundation is solid. Original stone from the 1800s, built to last. The bad news is pretty much everything else, he explained as they stood in what would eventually be the kitchen. "The roof needs complete replacement. The electrical wiring is ancient and dangerous. Plumbing's shot, and there's enough mold in here to make anyone sick, let alone a kid with asthma." Maya's heart sank. How much would it cost to fix all that? Sam hesitated. "Minimum? 30,000. And that's with me doing the work at cost, and you helping." The number hit Maya like a physical blow. $30,000 might as well have been $30 million. With her credit score, No bank would loan her anything. I don't have that kind of money, she admitted. I don't even have enough for a hotel tonight. Sam scratched his beard thoughtfully. I've got a camping trailer you can use for now. It's not fancy, but it's clean, and it's got working plumbing. We can park it on the property. Maya swallowed her pride. We'll pay you back, somehow. We'll figure it out, was all Sam said. Meanwhile, Ethan and Lily had been exploring the overgrown property, keeping a safe distance from the house itself. They discovered the remains of what must have been a large garden, now wild and overgrown, and an old well with a stone surround. Mom, Ethan called excitedly as he ran back to the house. There's apple trees back there, tons of them, and Lily says some of the plants growing everywhere are herbs, not just weeds. Lily, who had followed at a more sedate pace, nodded. My grandma taught me about herbs. There's lavender, thyme, mint, and some others I don't recognize growing all over back there. They've gone wild, but they're definitely planted, not random. Maya remembered what Iris had said about Josephine Mercer being an herbalist. Somehow, knowing that the previous owner had been a healer like herself, a nurse, created a strange connection across time. That evening, as Maya and Ethan settled into the borrowed trailer, she tried to maintain a positive attitude for her son's sake. It's like camping, right? An adventure. Ethan was quiet for a moment, then asked, Why did you buy this place, Mom? Really? Maya considered how to answer. Because I was desperate, she finally admitted. Because I was about to lose everything, and sometimes when you're at the very bottom you have to take a crazy chance. She looked at him seriously. I'm sorry if I made the wrong choice. You didn't, Ethan said with surprising conviction. This place feels, I don't know, important somehow, like we're supposed to be here. That night, after Ethan was asleep, Maya sat outside the trailer on a folding chair, staring at the dark silhouette of the house. The nearly full moon cast enough light to see the outline of the building against the night sky. As she watched, she could have sworn she saw a faint light move past one of the upstairs windows, as if someone carrying a candle had walked by. But that was impossible. There was no electricity, and no one else was there. Maya rubbed her eyes. She was exhausted, and her mind was playing tricks on her. Yet as she stared at the window, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was looking back. The following days established a routine. Maya would work her morning shift at the coffee shop, then spend the afternoon trying to clean the house enough to make it minimally habitable. Ethan would go to school, then join her afterward, wearing a dust mask to protect his lungs. Sam dropped by most days after his own work was done, tackling the most dangerous structural issues. He refused payment, saying only, You can pay me back when you're on your feet. Iris brought food and stories about Josephine Mercer, painting a picture of a brilliant, independent woman who had moved to the rural community in the early 1980s. According to Iris, Josephine had been in her early 30s when she bought the farm, already an accomplished herbalist with formal training in botany. She was a city girl originally, Iris explained one evening as they sat outside the trailer. Had some fancy education, though she never talked much about her past. Said she came here looking for peace and space to grow her gardens. What did she look like? Maya asked, trying to picture the woman who had lived in their house. Beautiful woman, tall with the most striking eyes, one blue, one brown. Her mother was from Jamaica, father was white. She had this wonderful laugh that made you want to laugh too, even if you didn't know what was funny. And she just disappeared? No warning? Iris's face grew serious. None. Though thinking back, she seemed anxious those last few weeks. Less open, always looking over her shoulder. I asked if something was wrong, but she just said she was working on an important project and needed to concentrate. Did the police have any theories? They didn't try very hard, if you ask me. Young black woman living alone in a rural area? They assumed she'd just left, even with all her belongings still here. As the days passed, Maya couldn't stop thinking about Josephine. Who was she? What had happened to her? And why did Maya feel such a strong connection to a woman she had never met? One evening, as she was cleaning what would eventually be Ethan's bedroom, Maya noticed that one floorboard moved slightly when she stepped on it. Curious, she knelt down to examine it. The board was loose, and when she pried it up with a screwdriver, she found a small space underneath. Heart pounding, she shone her flashlight into the cavity. There was something there, a metal box about the size of a thick hardcover book. She carefully lifted it out. The tin box was old, its surface tarnished but still solid. There was no lock, just a simple latch. Maya hesitated, feeling like she was intruding on someone's private space. But this was her house now, and whatever secrets it held belonged to her too. She opened the box. Inside, protected from the elements that had damaged so much of the house, were 3 items: a leather-bound journal, a small stack of photographs, and an ornate brass key. Maya lifted out the journal first. The cover was soft with age and use, the pages slightly yellowed at the edges. Opening to the first page, she read, "Property of Josephine Eleanor Mercer, 1982. This was Josephine's personal journal. Maya's hands trembled slightly as she carefully turned the pages. The handwriting was neat and precise, detailing Josephine's thoughts and experiences as she established her new life on the farm. The early entries were full of hope and plans, sketches of garden layouts, lists of medicinal plants, notes on the local ecosystem. Josephine wrote about renovating the house, making friends with neighbors, including a much younger Iris, and her joy in having space to grow her healing garden. As Maya read further, she discovered that Josephine hadn't been just any herbalist. She had a PhD in botanical biochemistry from Cornell University, had worked in pharmaceutical research before leaving to pursue her own studies. Corporate research is too constrained by profit motives, Josephine had written. Nature has provided remedies for so many ailments, if only we approach it with respect rather than exploitation. Here I can combine traditional knowledge with modern science, free from shareholders and patents. Maya looked through the photographs next. They showed a striking woman with mixed features, exactly as Iris had described her, tall and elegant, with distinctive heterochromatic eyes. Many pictures showed Josephine in her gardens, surrounded by plants at various stages of growth. Others showed the house when it was well maintained, with flowering vines covering the porch and neat pathways leading to different garden areas. The brass key was heavy in Maya's hand, ornate and old-fashioned. No idea what it might open, but she placed it carefully in her pocket. As she continued reading the journal, the entries became increasingly technical, with chemical compounds and molecular structures that Maya, despite her nursing background, couldn't fully understand. Josephine wrote about a particular plant compound she was isolating that showed remarkable efficacy against something called Carter's syndrome. Maya recognized that name. Carter's syndrome was a rare autoimmune disease that caused progressive organ failure. It was named after the doctor who first identified it in the 1970s. As a nurse, she knew it was essentially a death sentence. Expensive treatments could slow its progression but not stop it. The final entries in the journal took a darker turn. Josephine wrote about someone she referred to only as RP who had shown unusual interest in her research. RP visited again today. One entry from April 1989 read, "His offer has increased to 7 figures, but money isn't the issue. I don't trust what his company would do with this research. The compound should be available to everyone who needs it, not locked behind patents and price tags." He didn't take the rejection well, said I should reconsider, that things could become difficult for me if I continued to refuse. The very last entry, dated May 15, 1989, was brief and chilling. "Someone was in the lab last night while I was asleep. Nothing seems to be missing, but papers were moved. I'm moving everything important to the secondary location tonight. If anything happens to me, the truth is hidden where only the right person will find it. RP will never have my work. After that, nothing." The remaining pages were blank. Maya sat on the dusty floor, holding the journal, a chill running down her spine despite the warm evening. Josephine had feared for her safety, had hidden her research, and then had disappeared. This wasn't just an abandoned house Maya had purchased. It was a crime scene, and somewhere on the property, Josephine Mercer had hidden a medical breakthrough worth killing for. Maya couldn't sleep that night. The journal, the photos, and especially Josephine's final ominous entry kept replaying in her mind. She had so many questions. Who was RP? What exactly had Josephine discovered? And most importantly, what had happened to her? In the morning, rather than going to work, Maya called in sick and drove to the local library. The older building had a small archive of local newspapers on microfiche and a section dedicated to local history. The librarian, a woman in her 60s, raised her eyebrows when Maya asked about Josephine Mercer. "Doing research on the Mercer case?" she asked. "Or did you just buy that old house up on Mill Road?" News clearly traveled fast in small towns. "Both, actually," Maya admitted. "I'm trying to understand what happened to her." The librarian led Maya to a filing cabinet with newspaper archives. These are sorted by date. Josephine Mercer disappeared in May 1989. The biggest stories were in the weeks right after, then follow-ups when the case went cold. She paused. "I knew her, you know. Used to visit her sometimes when my arthritis was acting up. She made a salve that worked better than anything I've tried since." The microfiche revealed exactly what Iris had suggested, a cursory investigation with minimal effort. The headline from May 27, 1989 read, "Local herbalist missing, foul play or voluntary disappearance." The article detailed how a neighbor, Iris, Maya realized, had reported Josephine missing after not seeing her for several days. Police found no signs of struggle in the house, though Josephine's car was still in the garage, and all her personal belongings remained. The prevailing theory seemed to be that she had possibly left of her own accord for personal reasons. A follow-up article from 2 weeks later mentioned that police had exhausted all leads and were scaling back the investigation. There was a quote from the sheriff at the time: "Some people just want to disappear and start over. Without evidence of foul play, there's not much more we can do." Maya couldn't believe how quickly the case had been dismissed. A brilliant scientist had vanished without a trace, leaving behind everything she owned, and the authorities had essentially shrugged it off. In the local history section, she found a small book about prominent residents of the county. Josephine had a brief mention. Josephine Mercer, 1956, came to our community in 1982, establishing herself as a skilled herbalist and botanical researcher. With degrees from Cornell University, Miss Mercer chose our rural county for its biodiversity and undeveloped land. Her disappearance in 1989 remains unsolved. Maya took photos of everything she found, then asked the librarian, "Do you know if anyone named RP was connected to Josephine?" The librarian thought for a moment. "Not that I recall off the top of my head, but there was a fancy man from a pharmaceutical company who came to see her a few times. I remember because he looked so out of place. Expensive suit, luxury car. People noticed." "Do you remember which pharmaceutical company?" "Something with an R, I think." "Radcliffe?" "Yes, Radcliffe Pharmaceuticals. They were big back then, still are today." Maya's heart rate accelerated. RP could be the company itself, or someone who worked there. She thanked the librarian and headed to a coffee shop with internet access to continue her research. Radcliffe Pharmaceuticals was indeed still a major player in the industry, with global reach and billions in annual revenue. Their corporate history page mentioned that from 1975 to 2005, the company had been led by CEO and chairman Richard Patton, RP. Maya found an old photograph of Patton from a 1990 business magazine. He had been in his 50s then, with steel gray hair and cold eyes, accepting an award for pharmaceutical innovation. She dug deeper, looking for any connection between Radcliffe Pharmaceuticals and Carter's syndrome, the disease Josephine had been researching. After nearly an hour, she found something, a small article from 1988, mentioning that Radcliffe had been developing a treatment for Carter's syndrome, but had abandoned the research after unsuccessful clinical trials. The timeline fit perfectly. Radcliffe had failed to develop a treatment. Josephine, working independently, had succeeded. Richard Patton had tried to buy her research. She had refused, and shortly after, she had vanished. When Maya returned to the property that afternoon, she found Sam working on the roof. She debated whether to share what she'd discovered. She barely knew him, but something told her she could trust him, and she needed allies. As Sam climbed down from the ladder, Maya approached him. "Can I talk to you about something strange?" Sam wiped his hands on a rag. "Strange is my specialty." "What's up?" Maya showed him the journal and explained what she'd learned about Josephine and her research. Sam listened without interrupting, his expression growing increasingly serious. "I knew Josephine," he finally said when Maya finished. "Not well, but I did some work on this house for her about a year before she disappeared. She was a good person, helped my wife when she was sick." "Your wife?" Maya hadn't heard him mention a wife before. "She passed away. Cancer. Josephine's remedies didn't cure her, but they helped with the pain when nothing else would." Sam looked toward the overgrown gardens. "I always thought there was something fishy about Josephine disappearing. She loved this place too much to just leave." "I think Richard Patton from Radcliffe Pharmaceuticals had something to do with it," Maya said. "But I can't prove anything, and I have no idea what happened to her research." Sam considered this. "What about that key you found? Any idea what it opens?" Maya pulled the brass key from her pocket. "Nothing in the house that I've found so far." Might not be for the house itself. Josephine had several outbuildings on the property, a greenhouse, a shed, and I had her build a small laboratory behind the house. Most of them collapsed over the years, but there might be something left. That evening, after Ethan was asleep, Maya and Sam explored the property with flashlights. The greenhouse was just a foundation now, broken glass scattered around it. The shed had partially collapsed, its contents long ago damaged by weather and animals. "The lab should be this way," Sam said, leading her through the overgrown grass. It was a solid structure, concrete foundation with proper insulation. They pushed through a thicket of brambles and found themselves facing what looked like a small bunker partially reclaimed by vines and moss. The door was metal, rusted but intact, with an old-fashioned keyhole. Maya's hand trembled slightly as she inserted the brass key. It turned with surprising ease, as if the lock had been recently maintained. The door creaked open to reveal a small room, perhaps 12 feet square, in remarkably good condition. "Someone's been taking care of this place," Sam murmured, sweeping his flashlight around the interior. Unlike the house, the lab showed no signs of animal intrusion or severe weather damage. It was dusty but intact, with shelves of equipment, jars of dried plant material, and a central workbench. One wall was covered with diagrams and notes protected by glass frames. "Look at this," Maya said, brushing dust from a modern-looking microscope, far more sophisticated than what she would have expected in a rural herbalist's lab from the 1980s. Under the workbench, they found a small safe, also with a keyhole that matched their brass key. Inside was a stack of notebooks filled with detailed formulas, molecular diagrams, and experimental results, all in Josephine's precise handwriting. The final notebook contained what appeared to be a breakthrough, a complete formula for a compound derived from a specific plant hybrid Josephine had developed, with documented results showing 94% efficacy in treating Carter's syndrome. "I don't understand all of this," Maya admitted, "but from what I can tell, she created something revolutionary, something that could save thousands of lives. And something worth killing for," Sam added grimly. At the bottom of the safe, they found a sealed envelope addressed simply, "For whoever finds this." With trembling fingers, Maya opened it. Inside was a letter written in the same handwriting as the journal. "If you're reading this, I am likely gone. My name is Josephine Mercer, and I fear for my life. Richard Patton of Radcliffe Pharmaceuticals has threatened me repeatedly over my refusal to sell my research. He cannot accept that I developed what his company failed to create. The formula in these notebooks can save countless lives. It belongs to humanity, not to corporate profits. I've hidden copies of my research in multiple locations, along with evidence of Patton's threats. If anything happens to me, the truth must come out. Trust your instincts about who can help you. The house chooses its guardians wisely." Josephine Mercer, May 16, 1989. Maya and Sam looked at each other, the weight of the discovery settling between them. "We need to be careful," Sam finally said. "If what Josephine wrote is true, we're dealing with powerful people who've already gotten away with one crime. But it's been over 30 years, Maya pointed out. "Richard Patton must be elderly by now, if he's even still alive. People like that protect themselves and their legacies, and Radcliffe is still a major corporation with billions at stake." As they carefully gathered the notebooks to take back to the trailer, Maya felt a strange sensation, as if someone was watching them. She turned quickly, sweeping her flashlight across the lab, but saw nothing. Yet the feeling persisted as they made their way back through the overgrown property. Not a threatening presence, but a watchful one, almost protective. That night, Maya dreamed of a woman with mismatched eyes standing in a lush garden, smiling and beckoning her forward. When she woke, the scent of lavender lingered in the air of the trailer, though there was none actually present. The next morning, Maya called the one person she thought might understand the scientific significance of what they'd found, Dr. Elaine Chen, her former supervisor at the hospital and a respected medical researcher. "Maya, it's good to hear from you," Dr. Chen said when she answered. "How are you doing?" It's complicated. I need your advice on something, but it has to stay confidential. Can we meet?" They arranged to meet at a cafe in the next town over, where Maya wouldn't be recognized. Maya brought copies of the most important pages from Josephine's research, carefully locking the originals in Sam's truck safe. Dr. Chen listened to Maya's story with growing astonishment, examining the research pages with expert eyes. "This is remarkable," she finally said. "If these results are accurate, this woman developed a complete therapeutic protocol for Carter's syndrome decades ahead of current research, and using natural compounds with minimal side effects." She looked up at Maya. "Do you understand what you found?" "I think so," Maya said, "but I need to hear it from you. You've found a medical breakthrough worth billions of dollars. Carter's syndrome affects only about 50,000 people worldwide, but there's currently no effective treatment. Patients typically survive only 3 to 5 years after diagnosis. A cure would be monumental. But it's not mine," Maya pointed out. "It's Josephine's work. Legally complicated, since she's been missing for decades and presumably dead. But ethically, you're right." "Doctor?" Chen studied Maya thoughtfully. "What do you intend to do with this discovery?" "I don't know yet, but I know I want to honor Josephine's wishes, that it benefit people, not just profits." Dr. Chen nodded. "I have contacts in medical research ethics and patent law. Let me make some calls." In the meantime, be extremely careful. If your theory about Richard Patton is correct, this information is dangerous. I've only told you and Sam Reynolds, a local contractor who's been helping me with the house. Keep it that way for now. And Maya, consider making digital copies of everything and storing them securely online. Information can't disappear if it exists in multiple places. When Maya returned to the property, she found an unfamiliar black SUV parked in the driveway. A tall, thin man in an expensive suit was speaking with Sam near the trailer. Ethan and Lily were nowhere to be seen, which immediately made Maya uneasy. As she approached, Sam's face was carefully neutral, but his eyes signaled caution. "Ah, Miss Coleman," the man said smoothly. "I was just introducing myself to your friend, Thomas Wright, County Assessor's Office." He handed her a business card that indeed identified him as such. "What can I help you with, Mr. Wright?" Maya asked, keeping her voice even. "Just a routine matter. It seems there were some irregularities with your property purchase. The county is reviewing several transactions from that auction, including yours." "Irregularities?" Maya repeated. "What kind of irregularities?" "Technical details. The property may not have been properly listed for auction. Appropriate notifications to interested parties may not have been made. Just procedural issues." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "In the meantime, I wanted to let you know that the county may need to temporarily suspend your ownership pending review." Maya felt her heart rate accelerate, but she maintained her composure. "That's odd. The clerk didn't mention any issues when I completed the paperwork. These concerns were raised subsequently. I'm sure it will all be cleared up, but the process could take several months, during which time technically you shouldn't be occupying the property." Sam stepped forward. "You'll need to provide written documentation of these alleged irregularities, along with the specific county codes being cited. My cousin practices real estate law. She'll want to review everything." Something flickered across Wright's face. Annoyance, perhaps, or recalculation. "Of course, I'll have those documents sent over. In the meantime, Miss Coleman, there's another option that might interest you. The county has been authorized to offer you a settlement, $20,000 to relinquish your claim to the property. That's more than 20 times what you paid." Now Maya understood. This wasn't about procedural irregularities. Someone knew what she had found and wanted her gone. "I'm not interested in selling," she said firmly. "This is my home now." Wright's pleasant demeanor cooled. "I strongly suggest you consider the offer, Miss Coleman. Property disputes can become complicated, especially for someone in your financial situation." He handed her a card. "Call me when you've reconsidered." As he drove away, Sam said quietly, "That man is not from the county assessor's office." "How do you know?" "Because my cousin, who practices real estate law, she's married to the actual county assessor. That man is an imposter." Maya felt a chill. "Where are Ethan and Lily?" "Inside the house. I sent them in when he arrived. I didn't like the way he was looking around." Sam's expression was grim. "It's starting already. Someone knows what we found." "But how? We've been so careful. Small towns, big ears. Or maybe," Sam glanced toward the lab they'd discovered, "maybe they've been watching this place all along, waiting to see if anyone ever found Josephine's research." That evening, Maya searched online for information about Thomas Wright and the county assessor's office. As Sam had suspected, there was no Thomas Wright listed as an employee. The business card had looked legitimate, but it was fake. She also researched the current status of Radcliffe Pharmaceuticals. Richard Patton, now in his 80s, was no longer CEO but remained on the board of directors as chairman emeritus. His son, Richard Patton Jr., was now the CEO, continuing the family's control of the company. The company had grown exponentially since the 1980s, with annual revenues exceeding $50 billion. Their main profit centers were treatments for chronic conditions, medications patients needed to take for life, rather than cures that would eliminate the need for ongoing treatment. As she scrolled through news about the company, one recent headline caught her eye. Radcliffe announces Phase 1 trials for Carter's syndrome treatment. According to the article, Radcliffe had recently revived its research into Carter's syndrome, claiming new proprietary approaches to treating the disease. The company's stock had jumped 12% on the announcement. Maya felt sick. After abandoning their research for decades, Radcliffe had suddenly renewed interest in Carter's syndrome, just as she had discovered Josephine's breakthrough. That couldn't be coincidence. The next day, Maya did something she had been avoiding. She went into the main house to clean what would be her bedroom. Despite Sam's progress on the roof and basic structural issues, the interior was still largely untouched. But if they were going to face challenges to their ownership, Maya was determined to show they were actively living there. As she cleared debris from what would eventually be her room, she noticed something odd about one section of the wall. The floral wallpaper pattern subtly changed, as if a repair had been made. and the replacement wallpaper didn't quite match. Curious, Maya carefully peeled back the edge of the wallpaper. Behind it was a small recess in the wall containing another metal box, similar to the one she'd found under the floorboard. This box contained newspaper clippings from 1988 and early 1989, all related to Radcliffe Pharmaceuticals. One headline stood out: Radcliffe abandons Carther's treatment after failed trials. Another article detailed how Radcliffe's stock had plummeted after the announcement, with analysts questioning the leadership of Richard Patton. The company had invested over $100 million in the failed treatment. There were also photocopies of threatening letters, unsigned but written on Radcliffe letterhead, warning an unnamed recipient about the consequences of interference with proprietary research. Most disturbing was a small cassette tape labeled simply, May 10, 1989. Maya needed to find a cassette player to hear what was on it. That afternoon, another visitor arrived at the property. A sleek BMW with tinted windows. The driver was a polished woman in her 40s with a designer suit and a professional smile. Miss Coleman? I'm Victoria Patton, Vice President of Research Acquisition at Radcliffe Pharmaceuticals. Maya's blood ran cold. Patton. She must be related to Richard Patton, perhaps his daughter or daughter-in-law. What can I do for you, Miss Patton? Maya asked, keeping her distance. I understand you recently purchased this property. Radcliffe Pharmaceuticals has a historical interest in this land for research purposes. We'd like to make you a generous offer, $250,000 cash for the house and all contents, as is. The amount was staggering, enough to solve all of Maya's financial problems and then some, but the timing and the connection to Patton made it clear what this was really about. I'm not interested in selling, Maya said firmly, but I'm curious. Why would a pharmaceutical giant be interested in an abandoned house? Victoria's smile remained fixed. The property has unique botanical specimens we've been tracking for potential research. Nothing sinister, I assure you. She handed Maya a business card. Think about it. $250,000 could change your life. Our offer will remain open for 48 hours. As the BMW drove away, Sam, who had been working nearby and overheard everything, approached Maya. You know what this means, right? They know about Josephine's research. They're desperate to get it back. But after all these years, why would they still care so much? Because her formula works, Sam said simply. And a working treatment is worth billions to them, especially one they can claim they developed themselves. That night, Maya used an old cassette player borrowed from Iris to listen to the tape from the hidden box. The recording was somewhat muffled, but clear enough. I told you, Richard, my work is not for sale. The voice was female, with a hint of an accent. Josephine Mercer. Maya realized with a shiver. Everyone has a price, Dr. Mercer. A male voice, cold and controlled. Name yours. It's not about money. Your company wants to patent this compound and charge patients a fortune for it. I want it available to everyone who needs it. Don't be naive. Development costs money. Clinical trials cost money. Your failed trials cost money, Josephine retorted. Mine succeeded because I approached the problem differently, and I've already documented everything. The research exists, with or without Radcliffe. That's where you're wrong. The man's voice hardened. Without Radcliffe's resources, your little discovery will never help anyone. We own the regulatory pathway. We own the distribution channels. Without us, you're just a woman playing with plants in the woods. I've already sent documentation to colleagues. If anything happens to me, nothing will happen to you if you cooperate. But things could become difficult if you continue this obstruction. Very difficult indeed. Are you threatening me, Mr. Patton? I'm offering you one last opportunity to be reasonable. $2 million for your research. Final offer. Not interested. Then you'll regret it. Everyone has weaknesses, Dr. Mercer. Everyone has something to lose. The recording ended. Maya sat in stunned silence, the cassette player still in her hands. She had just heard Richard Patton threatening Josephine Mercer days before her disappearance. It wasn't just circumstantial evidence anymore. It was motive, captured in Patton's own voice. The next morning, Maya called Dr. Chen with an update on the situation. They're moving fast, Doctor, Chen said, sounding worried. If they're offering that much money, they're desperate to get Josephine's research before you understand its full value. Which is what exactly? Based on my preliminary analysis of the formulas you showed me, we're talking billions. A patent on an effective Carther's syndrome treatment would be worth at least $5 minus $10 billion over its lifetime, possibly much more. Maya felt dizzy at the number. What should I do? I've spoken with a colleague who specializes in pharmaceutical patents. She's willing to meet with you, and I think we should consider bringing this to the FBI. If your recording proves Richard Patton threatened Josephine before her disappearance, That's evidence in a potential murder investigation. Before Maya could respond, she heard Ethan calling urgently from outside. "Mom, something's wrong with the water." Maya rushed outside to find Ethan at the trailer's small sink, which was running brown, foul-smelling water. "It was fine earlier," Ethan said. Then it suddenly changed. Sam examined the trailer's water connection, which ran to a well on the property. "Someone's tampered with the well," he concluded grimly. This didn't happen naturally. They found the well cap had been removed and quickly discovered evidence that someone had poured something into their water supply. An empty container of industrial chemicals lay partially hidden in nearby bushes. "We need to report this to the police," Maya insisted. "We will," Sam agreed, "but don't expect much help." He was right. The local sheriff listened to their report with obvious skepticism. "Probably just kids playing pranks," he suggested. "No evidence anyone specific did this, but we'll look into it." His casual dismissal reminded Maya of how Josephine's disappearance had been handled, with minimal concern or effort. Later that day, Maya received a call from an unlisted number. "Miss Coleman, this is Richard Patton, Jr. I understand you've turned down our generous offer for your property." Maya's heart raced, but she kept her voice steady. "That's right. The house isn't for sale. I think you misunderstand the situation. We're not just interested in the house. We're interested in everything associated with it, including certain research materials you may have found." "I don't know what you're talking about," Maya lied. "Let's not play games. My father spent decades ensuring that Dr. Mercer's work remained buried. I'm prepared to be far more generous than he was. $1 million, Miss Coleman, for the house and all its contents. No questions asked." Maya's mind reeled at the amount, enough money to secure her and Ethan's future forever. But she thought of Josephine, who had refused an offer twice as large because she believed in something more important than money. "The answer is still no," Maya said firmly. There was a long pause. "I admire your conviction, Miss Coleman, but I wonder if you've considered your son's well-being in this equation. Ethan isn't it. With his asthma, living in a remote area, far from medical care, accidents happen." Ice flooded Maya's veins. "Are you threatening my child?" "I'm simply pointing out that choices have consequences, some more immediate than others. Think carefully about what matters most to you." The call ended, leaving Maya shaking with rage and fear. This had escalated beyond property disputes and research theft. They were threatening Ethan. When Sam arrived later, Maya told him about the call. His face darkened with anger. "We need to protect Ethan," he said immediately. "Lily too, they know she's been here. Should we leave? Just go somewhere else until this is resolved?" Sam thought for a moment. "That might be exactly what they want, to scare you away long enough for them to search the property thoroughly." "No, I think we need to stay and fight, but smartly. My house has a good security system. You and Ethan should stay with us for now." That evening, as Maya and Ethan prepared to leave for Sam's house, Ethan made a disturbing discovery. His inhaler wasn't working properly. When he tried to use it, nothing happened, though it should have been nearly full. Someone tampered with this, Maya realized, examining the inhaler. The medication inside had been emptied and replaced with water. Now thoroughly frightened, Maya hurried Ethan to the car. As she turned the key in the ignition, Sam suddenly shouted, "Wait! Don't start the car!" He dropped to the ground, looking underneath the vehicle, then emerged with a grim expression. "Brake line's been cut. If you'd driven down that hill." The implications were terrifying. This wasn't corporate intimidation anymore. It was attempted murder. They called the sheriff again, who this time took the report more seriously but still seemed reluctant to acknowledge the connection to Radcliffe Pharmaceuticals. "You're suggesting a multi-billion-dollar corporation is trying to kill you over an old house?" he asked skeptically. "That's a serious accusation without hard evidence." "What about the threatening phone call? The tampering with my son's inhaler? The cut brake lines?" Maya demanded. "Could be unrelated incidents, or someone with a grudge against you personally. We'll investigate, but I need to be honest. It's going to be difficult to connect this to a major corporation without substantial evidence." That night, sheltering at Sam's house with Ethan and Lily, Maya realized how quickly the situation had escalated. They had gone from discovering valuable research to being actively targeted in just a few days. "We need to be proactive," Sam said as they discussed their options. "If they're willing to go this far, they won't stop." "I've been thinking about that tape recording," Maya said. "It's evidence of Richard Patton threatening Josephine right before she disappeared. The local sheriff might not take it seriously. The FBI might." "It's 30 years old," Sam pointed out. "And without Josephine's body, they might still treat it as a missing person case, not murder." "But what if we could find her?" Maya suggested. "What if she left more clues about where to look?" The next day, while Sam stayed with the kids, Maya returned to the property with Iris, who had known Josephine better than anyone still living in the area. Josephine was methodical, Iris recalled as they walked the overgrown property. She would have had a system, a backup plan if anything happened to her. She mentioned a secondary location in her journal. We found her lab, but there might be somewhere else. They systematically explored the property, looking for any structure or hiding place they might have missed. It was Iris who noticed something odd about the old well. This well was here when Josephine bought the place, but I don't remember that stone pattern around the edge. She must have rebuilt it at some point. The stones around the well's edge formed a pattern that, when viewed from above, resembled a compass rose. One stone was slightly different in color than the others, marking what would be north in the pattern. It's pointing at something, Maya realized. Following the direction, they came to a massive old oak tree at the edge of the property. The tree showed no obvious signs of hiding anything, but when Maya circled it completely, she noticed a small carving on the opposite side from the well, the initials JM and a small arrow pointing down. She buried something here, Maya said, excitement building. They hurried to the trailer to retrieve a shovel. Digging was hard in the compacted soil around the tree's roots, but about 2 feet down, Maya's shovel struck something solid. Carefully, they uncovered a waterproof container, sealed tight against the elements. Inside, protected by layers of plastic, was a waterproof case containing a video cassette labeled insurance, some documents, and a letter dated May 17, 1989, the day after her last journal entry, and likely the day before she disappeared. The letter read, "To whoever finds this, if you're reading this, I fear the worst has happened. Richard Patton has made it clear he will stop at nothing to acquire my research on Carter's syndrome. The enclosed video contains my full testimony and evidence of his threats. I've also included coordinates to a location in the state forest where I've hidden complete duplicates of all my research findings. Patton must never find this material. If I disappear, do not trust the local authorities. Richard has influence everywhere. Take this evidence to the federal level. Josephine Mercer." The documents included a hand-drawn map with coordinates to a location deep in the state forest, about 30 miles away. And most damning of all, a series of photographs showing Richard Patton on the property, apparently taken secretly from inside the house. In one image, he appeared to be in a heated argument with Josephine on her front porch. "We need to find a VCR for that tape," Maya said, "and we need to check these coordinates." Before they could leave, however, they heard a vehicle coming up the driveway, the sheriff's car. But it wasn't a routine visit. The sheriff looked grim. "Miss Coleman, I need to inform you that the county judge has issued an emergency injunction prohibiting you from occupying this property pending resolution of ownership disputes." "What? That's ridiculous. I purchased this property legally. I'm just delivering the order, ma'am. You have 24 hours to vacate. After that, you'll be considered trespassing." Maya recognized what was happening. "Who requested this injunction?" The sheriff avoided her eyes. "That information isn't included in my instructions." "It was Radcliffe Pharmaceuticals, wasn't it, or someone connected to them? I'm just doing my job, Miss Coleman." After the sheriff left, Iris looked troubled. The judge who would have issued that order, Judge Harmon, he's been in Richard Patton's pocket for decades. Patton funded his first campaign back in the 80s. Maya carefully secured their discoveries in Sam's truck before leaving the property. They were running out of time and options, but now they had something concrete, evidence connecting Richard Patton directly to Josephine, and coordinates to what might be the final piece of the puzzle. That evening, a thunderstorm rolled in, bringing fierce lightning and heavy rain. As they sheltered in Sam's house, Ethan suddenly became agitated. "Mom, I keep seeing a woman. By the window, she's trying to show me something." "What woman, honey?" Maya asked, concerned. "The woman from the photographs, the one who lived in our house before. I saw her last night too, but I thought I was dreaming." Maya and Sam exchanged glances. Could Ethan be seeing Josephine's spirit, or was his imagination working overtime with all the stress? "What is she trying to show you?" Maya asked gently. "Something about the apple trees. She keeps pointing to the orchard." Despite the storm, Maya and Sam decided to investigate. With raincoats and flashlights, they made their way to the abandoned orchard. The wind whipped around them as lightning illuminated the gnarled old apple trees. "There," Ethan said suddenly, pointing to the largest tree in the center of the orchard. That's where she was pointing. The tree was ancient, its trunk thick and twisted. At its base, partially visible in the disturbed soil, was another container, similar to the one they'd found by the oak tree. Inside was a small device Maya didn't recognize at first, an old microcassette recorder, the kind used for dictation in the 1980s. And with it, a final note from Josephine. May 18, 1989. Richard Patton is coming back tonight. He's threatened to destroy everything if I don't cooperate. This may be my last chance to record the truth. If anything happens to me, let the truth be known." The attached microcassette contained a recording of Josephine's voice, explaining in detail her research, Patton's escalating threats, and her fear for her safety. Most damning of all, it included a recorded conversation where Patton explicitly threatened her life. "We have him," Maya whispered. "After all these years, we have him." The next morning, Maya made two crucial phone calls. The first was to Dr. Chen, who had found a patent attorney willing to help protect Josephine's research. The second was to the FBI field office in the nearest city, where she explained that she had evidence related to a 30-year-old potential murder and corporate conspiracy. To Maya's surprise, the FBI agent on the phone seemed immediately interested, particularly when she mentioned Radcliffe Pharmaceuticals and Richard Patton. "We've had an open file on Patton for years," the agent explained. "Allegations of corporate espionage, bribery of officials, and suspected involvement in at least 2 other disappearances of research scientists. But we've never had enough evidence to move forward. If what you have is genuine." They arranged for Maya to meet with agents the following day. Meanwhile, Sam's cousin Andrea, the real estate attorney, arrived to examine the injunction against Maya's ownership of the property. "This is legally dubious at best," Andrea concluded after reviewing the documents. "The judge is citing procedural errors that don't actually exist in the county code. It's a delaying tactic, not a legitimate ruling." "Can we fight it?" Maya asked. "Absolutely. But it will take time, weeks, possibly months. In the meantime, technically, you can't stay on the property." Before they could discuss further, Maya's phone rang, an unknown number that she cautiously answered. "Miss Coleman, this is Catherine Weiland from the National Investigative Journal. I understand you've made some interesting discoveries about Radcliffe Pharmaceuticals and a missing scientist named Josephine Mercer." Maya was stunned. "How did you hear about this?" "Dr. Elaine Chen contacted us. She thought your story needed national attention for your safety. I'd like to talk to you about what you found." The involvement of a national journalist changed the dynamics dramatically. If the story broke publicly, Radcliffe would have a much harder time operating in the shadows. Catherine Weiland arrived later that day, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s with decades of investigative reporting experience. She listened to Maya's complete story, examined the evidence they'd gathered, and took detailed notes. "This is explosive," she concluded. "A major pharmaceutical company suppressing a medical breakthrough, a brilliant scientist who disappeared under suspicious circumstances, and now threats against a single mother who discovered the truth." She looked at Maya seriously. "Are you prepared for what publishing this story will mean? Radcliffe will come at you with everything they have." "They already are," Maya pointed out. "At least this way, the truth will be out there, no matter what happens to me." "I'll need to verify everything independently," Catherine warned. "But if it checks out, and I suspect it will, we'll run a story next week. In the meantime, document everything and stay safe." The next day, Maya met with the FBI agents, turning over copies of all the evidence they'd found. The agents were particularly interested in the voice recordings of Richard Patton and the coordinates to the location in the state forest. "We'll send a team to investigate those coordinates immediately," the lead agent promised. "If there's anything there connected to Josephine Mercer, we'll find it." 2 days later, Catherine called with news. "We're running the story tomorrow. Rural mom uncovers decades old pharmaceutical conspiracy. I've verified Josephine's credentials, the validity of her research, and Richard Patton's presence in the area when she disappeared. Radcliffe's PR team is already in panic mode, trying to get ahead of it." Within hours of the story breaking online, it was picked up by major news outlets across the country. Maya's phone began ringing constantly, reporters seeking comments, former colleagues expressing support, and even a few threats from anonymous callers. Most significantly, the county judge suddenly reversed his injunction on Maya's property, citing new information that resolved the procedural concerns. Then the FBI called with news that changed everything. "We found human remains at the coordinates Josephine provided. Preliminary identification based on dental records confirms it's Josephine Mercer. And there's evidence of foul play, blunt force trauma to the skull. After 30 years, Josephine Mercer had been found. And with her, the truth about what had happened that night in May 1989. Richard Patton, now in his 80s, was brought in for questioning. Within days, facing overwhelming evidence and the testimony of a former Radcliffe security officer who had been present that night, Patton was charged with Josephine's murder. The story dominated national headlines. Pharmaceutical titan charged in 1989, murder of brilliant black female scientist. Justice, after 30 years. The Josephine Mercer case. Rural mother's discovery leads to arrest of billionaire. Radcliffe Pharmaceuticals stock plummeted as the full story emerged. Multiple executives were implicated in the decades-long cover-up, and the company faced federal investigations into other potential crimes. Meanwhile, with the help of Dr. Chen's contacts, Maya filed for patents on Josephine's formula, listing Josephine as the primary inventor and herself as the executor of the discovery. The patent application specifically noted that the treatment must be made available at affordable prices, honoring Josephine's original intention. 6 months later, the transformation was remarkable. The farmhouse had been partially restored with help from community volunteers who had been inspired by the story. Sam had coordinated the efforts, bringing in friends and colleagues to donate time and materials. Maya had established the Josephine Mercer Foundation, dedicated to researching natural medicines and providing healthcare to underserved communities. The foundation was funded by licensing agreements with ethical pharmaceutical manufacturers who had agreed to produce Josephine's Carter's syndrome treatment at accessible prices. The overgrown property had been cleared to reveal Josephine's extensive medicinal gardens, now recognized by botanical experts as containing rare plant varieties she had cultivated decades ahead of her time. Ethan, whose asthma had mysteriously improved after spending time on the property, led tours for visitors interested in learning about medicinal plants. Richard Patton had been convicted of second-degree murder and conspiracy, sentenced to spend his remaining years in prison. The justice system had finally worked, though decades late, for Josephine Mercer. On the 1-year anniversary of Maya's purchase of the property, a celebration was held at the farm, now known locally as Mercer Gardens. The community gathered to commemorate both Josephine's legacy and the new beginning her work had created. Maya stood on the front porch, looking out at what had once been an abandoned, cursed property, now transformed into a place of healing and hope. Sam stood beside her, their relationship having deepened from friendship to something more over the months of shared struggle. "Would you have believed this was possible a year ago?" Sam asked, taking her hand. "Never," Maya admitted. "I was just desperate for a roof over our heads. I never imagined." She trailed off, noticing something in the upstairs window of the house, a brief flicker of movement, as if someone had walked past. But the house was empty. Everyone was outside for the celebration. Later that evening, after the guests had gone and Ethan was asleep, Maya sat alone in what had been Josephine's study, now restored with her books and research materials on display. "Thank you," she said softly to the empty room, "for choosing me to find your work, for trusting me to finish what you started." A gentle breeze rustled through the open window, carrying the scent of lavender and herbs from the garden. For just a moment, Maya felt a presence beside her, not frightening, but peaceful, watchful, proud. The breeze settled, and Maya was alone again, but she knew she would never truly be alone in this house. Josephine's spirit, her legacy, would always be there, guiding the next chapter of the story that had begun with a desperate gamble on an abandoned home. A home that had become so much more than just a house. It had become a second chance, for Maya and Ethan, for Josephine's groundbreaking work, and for countless patients who would now benefit from a discovery nearly lost to corporate greed and violence. Maya smiled as she turned out the light, ready to face whatever tomorrow might bring. If you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more extraordinary true stories of courage, justice, and transformation. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload.